Welcome to the 3PL Summit. Today we are joined by Nick Shipe, Business Development Manager at Circle Logistics. Welcome to the summit, Nick.
Thank you very much. Appreciate being here.
I am kind of excited about it. This is I feel like my March Madness, even though it's April, because it's a 3PL Summit, and as the 3PL expert, it's a good day. It's a good day for me.
Absolutely.
But before we jump into our conversation today, why don't you give us a background on yourself and kind of how you got started at Circle Logistics?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am starting my fifth year here at Circle Logistics. Came in originally, was a sales manager for the organization. I had a past experience of running multiple insurance offices for about 8.5 years, and was moving back to the area, was looking for something new, wanted to get out of the insurance, and knew I had a positive connection with customers. And so definitely wanted to use those abilities to move over. Um, at the start of it, our company was still a bit in its infancy. It was, really in the growing aspect terms when I started. So I started in the sales side, worked with both the brokerage and the assets for, new accounts for us. Was in that position for about 9 months. And then I took over our account management department and I was really working to develop new processes, new SOPs, new developments within our own existing accounts, and trying to produce more growth there, obviously. But in addition, from that, there was an opportunity for me to take over a specific division, our premium division here with Circle, which was a little bit higher value, a higher visibility, and really those pressure shipments that go along with there. So I've been in that role for the last about 3 years, 2.5, 3 years now, and continue to oversee that and expand into different divisions for ourselves.
I like it. You just kind of took what you knew and applied it to everything. At the end of the day, as long as your customer's happy, that's the most important part, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
So one of the things that we were going to touch on today is kind of when you have carrier relationships meeting your data analytics. So kind of when it comes to those data analytics part, how do you guys identify the data points that are the most important to collect and analyze for a healthy and successful supply chain?
Yeah, absolutely. I will always side on the fact of the relationship versus the numbers. Again, it kind of comes back from the insurance world that I was in before, and it was a lot of handshake deals. It necessarily wasn't always about the price point. It wasn't always necessarily about the product that was being offered. It was the trust factor that came along with there. And so, in this time, data analytics absolutely gives you a cutting edge when going into customers and being able to provide. But it's still, if you come back down to the handshake agreement, the development between, the relationship that you have with your customer or your carrier, it's always going to warrant opportunity. Price is always going to have a huge point into that. But it definitely will transfer over a lot easier when you do have the relationship to back up on there. But there are definitely some data points that we have to look at. Obviously, we have to look at the size of the companies that we are working with, both again, customer or carrier side, and if they can just simply perform. And what I mean by that is do they have the trucks available to run this project or this dedicated lane? Do they have the trailer pools that might be necessary for this? How long have they been in business? Are they able to, really push through and make sure that we're able to continue, that project for a long-term financially from there as well. So there is quite a bit that has to go into it. But again, as you start to learn more and more about that company, you're also able to trust that company and build the relationship to have them.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I feel like the relationships come first, and then that date you can use that data to help strengthen and enhance those relationships over time. Because, ultimately, I hate to say it, but a lot of times, a new customer starts with maybe like a handshake agreement or just like a let's see what we can do, and then from there you guys grow, and that's where that true partnership comes from when you have the data analytics to back up your decisions, make a healthier supply chain, and just kind of overall leave everybody happy. And it just happens to have a data background in it as well.
Absolutely. I mean, I think in our industry, there's always the overpromise and underdeliver that gets a lot of people in trouble. And it's easy to do that with just pure numbers, but when you truly do trust somebody, you know that they've got your back, it helps out in the long term.
Oh, absolutely. So I guess when it comes to, having that data to back up that relationship, how do you kind of make sure that that data is accurate and it's being used and applied correctly?
Sure. We have a wonderful TMS system that provides a lot of information for us here. So that is probably one of the biggest starting points, is being able to look at that carrier's history within our own organization. Um, you know, it may be a new carrier to us, and we have to go out and kind of get carrier reference to go along with that. But if it is a carrier that we've been able to use inside, I can look and see, okay, they may have ran 500 loads for us in the past, and I might be able to see what specific customers that they've worked with. I might be able to see what their average rate per mile is that they're working with. I'll be able to tell what type of equipment that they have, and be able to use that to our advantage to be able to go to our customers and say, hey, we've got the key. We could start next week, because we know that we've got these data points that are in our previous usage of whatever loads that they may have, to be able to then further it to go onto that project. Or if I know it's a carrier that I've worked with in the past that is looking to expand their operation but they don't necessarily know, again, our TMS is going to show us what direction that customer, that carrier specifically wanted to go.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the first step is, kind of having that system that can capture this data and, also having someone know on the other end know what to do with it. Cause I've said many times before that, you can have all the fancy TMS and tech and you can have all of the fancy data capturing tools in the world, but it's really just a very expensive process if you don't have anyone on the other side that's able to take that data and interpret it and actually run with it. Because I mean, it's only as good as that interpretation and the ability to create a plan off of it, which I think everyone kind of forgets sometimes because they're just like, oh, I'm going to buy this really nice, or I'm going to get this really nice software that can do all these analytics for me and look at all these analytics I have. But there's no one there to say, like, this is good, this is bad, this is how we can create actionable steps from it, you know?
Absolutely. Yep. I agree with you. And the neat part about our company is we've really invested into having, people that are specifically driven to look at that for us. And then, as sales individuals or account managers or things like that, obviously communication throughout our whole organization, we can go and say, hey, I've got this project coming up, or, this RFQ for the 3 years is coming up, or, hey, this customer came and said, we've got these expedites that are going. We can then tie in our data scientists and be able to say, hey, what carrier best fits this? And they're able to go find that for us there as well. So it does become a nice marriage between the departments to be able to make everything talk and be cohesive together.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like that's kind of really leaning, that's kind of that data, that's like that really strong data background is knowing that, with every decision, you can have a partner behind it. It doesn't just have to be one person making that decision. What are some of the times that you guys have really gotten your competitive advantage by having these data scientists so heavily involved? Like, what are some of those times that you're like, oh, this actually paid off because of our investment into this technology and to the data?
Yeah, a couple ways that we've been able to utilize them, for our best abilities here is one specifically would be that during the COVID timeframe, a lot of our large section businesses had taken a dip in the load counts. Obviously, there wasn't as many orders coming out, and so we had to go in and look at specifically what type of businesses that those carriers or those customers were running, and was there any other avenues. And so that actually introduced us into the bulk world, where we were looking at our customers and saying, they're specifically doing all of this outbound. What about the inbound side of things? And so we went to our data scientists. We were able to have them kind of source where some of the lanes that were coming from, and then be able to utilize that for our customers to come back and say, hey, we can do all this on the raw material side for you, And the customer was able to come back and say, okay, what carriers do you have availability to be able to run ethanol shipments, for example? And so we were able to, obviously look at, okay, we've got a lot of outbound opportunity that's coming in. What about the inbound opportunity that's coming, to that specific plant? They were able to not only work within our our, our pricing that we would need to, but then also be able to help us source on those specific customers and the customer needs that we would have to go in to go through with there. Other times that we've been able to do it is look at the non-traditional aspect of maybe how freight was running. Automotive has always been dunnage out and parts in, and so we've taken that type of mentality and transferred it to more of a existing business sector for us to be able to provide good, solid pricing by grouping and doing different OD pairings for our current customers. And so, utilizing them to come in at a more aggressive stance on pricing allows us to not only keep up with, different price points that our customers may have, but then also be able to come in at a more competitive advantage for more awards for us as well.
I like it because that's kind of that, well, we have all these resources at our disposal. We might as well just get creative with our solutions, make something out of essentially kind of nothing or very little. And it really kind of also balances that, the knowledge that you might have in the supply chain just from being in it or working in it for a very long time combined with the data and just kind of like, well, this is like, I got a hunch, so let's roll with it. It's just kind of like that nice union of all of it where you get to kind of bring everything together. So I have one more question for you today, and I think it's something that is going to become a much hotter topic over the next few years as we kind of get into, data sharing and everything like that. So what's kind of the most important thing that people need to keep in mind when they start, using some heavy data analytics? That what's the most important thing to keep in mind in regards to like data security and making sure that there's not a data breach and customers' information isn't getting out.
Yep, I think when it comes to the information that we're receiving and making sure that it's protected, I think it comes from a couple different avenues. First and foremost, it's always going to be as far as the best information that comes in is obviously the best information that we're going to get out of it. And so, whether it's the daily logs that we're doing with our customer, or if it's the data points for our carriers, or if it's the price points that we're getting them from, all that information has to be key to be able to provide accurate information going back out for our customers there. But then, the protection of it is being invested into that. Thankfully, our data scientists are led by a very, very smart person. And Cody is able to, make sure that that's well protected. But then our company has also made a pretty aggressive investment to make sure that all of that information is protected, make sure that what is shared on a very private drive side of things, and then being able to utilize that, to our best abilities. So it definitely has to be a twofold there, but it does work out very well for us.
Yeah, it's kind of that like, customers trust you, that you've done your due diligence and that, you're able to protect their data as well as, you knowing that like customers aren't going to turn around and like, maybe share some of your findings with someone else. So it's kind of that like mutual agreement of, we got to really protect each other. And that's where that true partnership part comes in from here. But that being said, if anyone wants to reach out to you about kind of integrating data analysis into some of their business practices, where can they find you outside of the summit?
Obviously LinkedIn is always going to be the key place to be able to get in touch. My information is on our website. I am always open for a conversation. Feel free to reach out to me. I can provide my cell phone, email, and would love to talk more.
Awesome. Well, you guys heard it here first. Just go ahead and slide into Nick's DMs on LinkedIn. He basically just said they're open. Stick around. We have some amazing content coming for the rest of the summit.